welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you with us here today. I want to say a quick hello to our listeners in Payson, Arizona. We've got this listener base there that's building up quickly. So hello to all of you. You're not very far away. I could step outside my house and wave to the mountain where you're on. So glad to have you listening. Love knowing you're there. Today, we're talking about the Galactic Federation, and I just want to introduce ourselves. Whoops, we have a visitor. Let me let them in. We have Rozlyn Reynolds, myself, Ivory LaNoue, and Terri Ann Russell. And now we have Sean coming in as a visitor. Welcome, Sean. I'm going to make sure you're muted. There we go. And Sean, anyone else who joins us live, if you want to ask a question or share some information, please use the raise your hand feature, and it's down on the bottom menu under reactions. And then you can ask your question. I'll unmute you. He's got it.
He's on it.
Or you can ask it in the chat room if you're shy. So either way. We were just talking before the show started. Terri Ann and I were talking last night about this. Like, it's hard to find information about the Galactic Federation. And yes, we are reality-based. We understand that this came out of Star Trek. We know that. It came out of sci-fi TV movies. I'm a huge sci-fi fan, so I'm totally fine with that. But we were just saying, like, we believe there is something like this, but it's probably not called the Galactic Federation. You know, it's the same idea, it's the same purpose, the same mission, but that's, you know, I think that's just our name for it. And Terri Ann, I know you said you found something interesting. What was that?
When I was watching this morning online, so, you know, too, I also do channeling before I go into it. I say when I do channeling, and, you know, if my guides or anyone had told me that it didn't exist, I would totally believe them. And so I haven't gotten that in a channeling. So I do believe that it is true. And I was listening to an interview this morning, and it was difficult to find information about the Galactic Federation. And what they had said was that the Galactic Federation is a name that humans have given it to distinct that it's otherworldly. So it's just like a big, you know, vast name to use, that it's of the universe for us.
It makes sense, though. I mean, I've never believed, and I have reason to believe since childhood. I know we're not alone in this, the galaxies upon galaxies. We're not the only life out there, and certainly not the only intelligent life. And so it makes sense that there would be civilizations out there that are so vastly advanced to ours that we are like cavemen to them. And so here we're like, why can't we be part of the Galactic Federation? You know, why can't we? Well, and they're like, oh my goodness, you know, go build a fire. So we're still trying to figure out some of these basic things. But yes, we do have space travel now. We have, you know, the space station, we going to the moon, going to Mars, you know, all of these things happening. And I'm sure that the intelligence out there in all these galaxies that exist, and there's so many galaxies, that they're aware of what we're doing and how we're progressing. So they probably stick a toe in there just to see where we're at. Well, we're not in such a good place right now, are we?
No comment.
Time we think we're starting to make some real progress as a people, as a planet, things just seem to go downhill. It only takes a few bad apples to really spoil the bunch. So,
you know, personally for me, I would like to believe there was somebody out there supporting us in this crazy world that we live in. I have heard from what I've channeled that they will not let us blow up the world. So that gives me comfort to know that we have that support system. From what I know about the Galactic Federation is they are a support system. Exactly that. They support us. They won't interfere unless, like I said, we're going to do something so drastic that's going to affect everybody in the universe.
And, you know, I've had so many beings, some I don't even know who. Sometimes I'm running this by like Roz and different people who've worked with us, her boyfriend, Ed, you know, oh, this happened last night. And they're like, oh, that's the blue sphere people, you know, or I had this council show up, and, you know, it's not like I'm saying, hey, please send me a council. I really want to hear from. No, but these beings show up and they're always giving me messages telepathically about watching over us and understanding what's going on. And they know there's people on this planet who are thinking more globally. And I'm not talking about political issues. I'm just saying thinking about what's good for the people, not just themselves. And that they understand they're more open. Those people are more open to hearing from other species. And as a rule, they feel like our people are not. And so that's good. And I totally agree with you, Terri. And like, not only that, but I'm so much about the angels, and they've been so big in my life since I was a toddler, that I know they're watching over us and they know what's going on. So we've got angels, the ultra terrestrials, which are, extremely high frequency beings from other planets, dimensions, that feel like angels, have the same motivations and intentions as angels. So of course there's got to be something out there. And I'm going to let you talk about yours, Terri Ann, because I'm curious. You said you found something when you were looking online, just trying to find something to show, is there actually a Galactic Federation? And what was that?
I don't remember now.
Do you want me to talk while you think? It's okay.
I just totally went blank.
You're hilarious. Well, I'm going to tell you, I did a lot of research because I'm very curious about this. And honestly, there's nothing out there that says yes, except for one interview. And the one interview is very highly covered, and it's because it's with a credible person. So I just want to start. I should have really said this. Like, if you don't know about the Galactic Federation, if you listen to our show and you're not really into sci-fi, haven't watched a lot of Star Trek, it was created, said that it's a council of different alien species that rule over the cosmos. And there have been differing claims depending on who you ask, but some speculate there are 7 or 9 total council races that preside over the galaxy and beyond it. Now, so is there any truth to this, or is it just all created for sci-fi? Well, I found something, and this was on NBCnews.com, so not some fringe news source. And this was on December 8th of 2020, if you want to look it up. And in the title is, part of the title, former Israeli space security chief says extraterrestrials exist. Well, that got my attention. So the story is that this former Israeli space security chief said that Earthlings have been in contact with extraterrestrials from a galactic federation. And he's meaning that, like, for what, the same, not necessarily by that name, but the same kind of group. And here's what he said. The unidentified flying objects have asked not to publish that they are here. Humanity is not yet ready. And his name is Hayam Eshed. And it ran in Hebrew a few days before this and gained traction because it started getting posted in English. So he's a respected professor and a retired general. And he said that the aliens are equally curious about humanity and were seeking to understand the fabric of the universe. And that this Galactic Federation has been waiting for humans to reach a stage where we will understand what space and spaceships are. Well, we're there. He said cooperation, this was interesting, cooperation agreements had been signed between species, including an underground base in the depths of Mars, where there are American astronauts and alien representatives. And he said that they signed a contract with us to do experiments here. Now, here's where it gets interesting. He said President Donald Trump was aware of the extraterrestrials' existence and had been on the verge of revealing information, but was asked not to in order to prevent mass hysteria. That's probably true. I mean, that's probably—
I totally get a yes.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think a lot of people would completely freak out. And as he said, they've been waiting until today for humanity to develop and reach a stage where we will understand in general what space and spaceships are. The White House and Israeli officials did not immediately respond for comment, and the spokesperson for the Pentagon declined to comment. So I thought it was interesting. So I guess a spokesperson from NASA chimed in and said one of their agency's key goals was a search for life in the universe, but it had yet to find signs of extraterrestrial life. I don't believe that. And this guy, Eshed, says he spells this out in much more detail in a book that's The Universe Beyond the Horizon, Conversations with Professor Hayam Eshed. And that was published in November of 2020. So this guy is not some fringe nut job. This is a very well-respected person still. He oversaw the launch of numerous Israeli satellites into space and said he was only speaking now because attitudes were changing and people seemed more receptive. And I wondered that. I'm like, why now? You know, if you're not supposed to talk about it and they don't want us to know. He said, if I'd come up with what I'm saying today, 5 years ago, I would have been hospitalized. Today, they're already talking differently. I've nothing to lose. I've received my degrees and awards. I am respected in universities abroad. And I guess in May of 2020, Trump said space is going to be the future, both in terms of defense and offense. We're now the leader on space. And he created that new military branch called Space Force. So isn't it interesting that all happened like right around the same time? So I think that there's something here. And I think it's interesting that he was not, though a lot of people didn't like him saying this, nobody came out and called him a nut. Nobody came out and undermined his authority, his respected reputation. But there's been a lot of jokes in general about what he said. And a lot of people like making smart aleck comments on social media, claiming to be representatives on the Galactic Federation and blah, blah, blah. But there was some comments from some high level government people saying they thought his remarks were extraordinary, but they didn't say he's lying. They didn't say it's not true. You know, they didn't present anything. One person did say either it's some sort of practical joke or publicity stunt to sell his book. No, he was very clear. He was very, you know, there's an interview where he's giving it, and though I don't speak his language, the guy is not joking. The guy is, you know, dead serious and presents himself as very grounded. So there's, you know, some missing pieces of the puzzle here that's a little bit confusing. I do want to say there was another article in Forbes, so another major publication, same time. And they had a couple extra things that the NBC article didn't. And they were talking about the alien invasion meme proving strangely prescient, seeing mysterious monoliths popping up around the world, along with Pentagon-approved footage of UFOs. Now this reveal by Esham of the Galactic Federation. So this guy served, you know, he served as a head of Israel's space security program for nearly 30 years. That's a reputation. So I think that I think it's very interesting. And he was talking about how it's involving US and Israeli scientists. So I don't know why just US and Israeli, it's interesting. And I have to say something like this about, like when he said, if I'd said this 5 years ago, I'd been hospitalized. There was a time when, especially working in the field of mental health, I worked at a psychiatric hospital. If I had talked about the things I'd experienced, and because of that, my beliefs, I probably would have been locked up in the inpatient unit. You know, so there's a time and a place. You have to wait till the timing is right. You have to wait until you're in a more safe setting to come out and talk about things that are your truths. And, you know, I understand and I respect that. You know, sometimes people need to just speak up no matter what, but that's risky, isn't it? Okay, Sean has put a comment in the chat. And Sean says, I recall from one of your earlier discussions on blue avians, maybe, that Ivory and Rozlyn once saw the disguised mask of an entity slip, an entity here on Earth disguised. Is the presence of that entity related to the Federation? I would say no.
I don't think so.
I would say that was demonic. What I saw was demonic. So
Well,
that's
sounds
entirely
definitely not nice.
Yeah, that's an entirely different realm. Anything of the Federation would be high frequency with positive intentions for us and the planet. But what we saw was very low frequency, and it looked demonic to me. I don't know, Roz, what do you think?
It definitely had an evil glare, I would call it.
Yeah. You know what it really reminded me of, Sean, is some of the stuff I've watched. Do you know the Charmed? The Charmed ones? Is that what it's called? Or
Oh, that television show.
yeah, that television
Charmed.
show.
Yeah.
Alyssa Milano
Right.
and the three girls, and they have gifts. Well, in that show, there's a demon who has a face that looked very much, who was a repeating character like Balthazar. It looked a lot like Balthazar's demon face, is what it looked like. I see this like terrifying. It was. And here we are in a small room, and Roz and I are just looking at each other like, oh, yeah, yep. Mhm. On high alert. Let me tell you, we're like putting our shields out, shining our light. That was not fun.
So let's talk about that for a moment, because we talk about that a lot, and that's how you know the difference. We talk about frequency. So, either seeing that, if you can see clairvoyance, or if that was actually really in real life, or a glitch, but feeling what those beings are, you can really feel the difference between a low frequency being and a high frequency being. And that's why we always talk about the importance of us ourselves having our higher frequency. So you're not, that like attracts like. We're not attracting that into our field. I think we have to be very where we're going and how fast everyone is awakening now. I think it's also important for people to know, because there's things that they're seeing, hearing, feeling, and they're not understanding what that is. So I think the more you can discern, I always say go inward, right? How does it feel when I sit with it? And because I'm very feeling, so I'm clairsentient, I feel it in my gut. How does that feel when somebody says something? How is that person? I look deeper than what just that person looks like. There's usually, right, telltale things that are going on with their face that you can tell.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And something else too is two things. First off, just because you shine your light, you can be the brightest light worker on the planet. And though you're not attracting the dark, you are of interest to the dark.
Mm-hmm.
You're like standing in a dark room, a bright light in a dark room, moths to the flame.
Yeah.
So they're going to be interested in you. It's not about you attracting them, but yes. But the other thing is, like, if something comes to you, like I said, sometimes I'm just like laying in bed talking to my angels and this other thing comes in, but I really tune into, how does it feel? What's the frequency? How do I feel? Am I scared? And especially, do I feel it in my solar plexus? So if you're having beings come to you and you don't know what it is, I think that's a great place to start, figure out whether it's of the light or not. And I don't care what it is. If it's not of the light, I won't allow it around me. I don't want to discuss things with it. There's nothing positive for me to be gained in that anyway. I hope that answers your question, Sean. If you have more questions, if we went off topic a little, okay, you're welcome. You're welcome. We love your questions. There was something else here. So this guy who made this reveal, this Israeli guy, he's 87 years old, and in his 2020, he was still a professor. He may still be. And he said he revealed the information now because we're talking more about alien life forms and people would perhaps take him more seriously. I think it's interesting too, the guy's 87. My dad's close to that age. And I've noticed, like with him and my parents, their friends, man, they'll tell you like it is. What do they have to lose in their 80s? They don't have a whole lot of time left, and they tend to just like say it as it is, which when I saw his age made me take it even more seriously, because he's coming into the end of life, unless he lives to an extraordinary age, which could happen, but they just tend to tell it like it is. So something to think about. I don't blame him. I think that must have been kind of a hard thing to hang on to. And it is to be equated with all of these people in our own military, especially the Air Force coming forward, who've high level Air Force people who've retired and now saying all the things they've experienced, that they know, that they've seen, the evidence, the alien bodies, where they're stored, where they're being experimented, all these things that they're talking about. What did they have to gain? When they spent their lifetime building up a reputation in the military, building credibility, what do they have to gain by telling us this, unless it's Now they're out of the military and they want to tell the truth. They think we should know. I think we owe them to at least consider it.
Absolutely.
So do you want to talk some about some real life Galactic Federation, which we were talking again before the show, as we do, as we're waiting for showtime to start. And we're talking about how there's all these councils, high level councils that come through to people. I've had one or two come through to me. Roz has, I think Terri Ann has. I think that is delegates of the real, whatever you want to, it is actually called Galactic Federation.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I've been told, Roz has told me as well, that my higher aspect, a higher dimensional frequency there in another dimension, is on the high council. And so the more that I've ascended, the more I've found out, I've unlocked those pieces as I've ascended myself. I truly believe that there are high councils, and whether, they're higher dimensional aspects of ourselves, or they're other alien species. Like I always say this, I don't think we're going to know it all until we go. And then when we come back, we're going to forget it anyway. So it's like a puzzle.
Yes. It's like this conundrum, like you can't know till you're going to forget.
Don't know.
It's frustrating. You can't bring that knowledge here with you. But a few people seem to, especially these young children coming in, the new crystal children. Oh my goodness. Some of those kids, they're in their 70s and been on a lifelong spiritual journey.
Amazing. They're just amazing.
They are. And their gifts are powerful as well. So when these councils come to you, Terri Ann, what do they do, or what do they look like?
So when I've had meetings with the council, they are mainly, the ones I've had interactions with were Palladian, Arcturian, Venusian, and Andromedan. Those were the four main ones that came to me when I was meeting with the High Council. And they were present actually the day I got ordained in Sedona. I think there were four of us, and we were in a small church in Sedona, and above the church, we could all see and feel this High Council there. And so that was pretty powerful. We always talk about when there's numbers, how powerful energy is expanded. So those were the four that I am in contact with when I do any work, if they come to me or I request their information. A lot of times they just come organically, like you said. It'll be out of the blue, sometimes I'm in the bathroom getting out of the shower and I hear, it's time to meet or whatever. I'm like, well, you got to give me a few minutes, But their message is always the same. And everybody I talk to who channels galactic beings is always the same. They are here to support us. They really want the best for humanity. There's never any variation in that says they're here to harm us or hurt us. That has all been, propaganda by TV shows and movies. I mean, how often do you really see that they really came here to sort of help us, right?
Not too often. Those are the extraordinary ones, maybe like Cocoon.
Yes. Or E.T.
There's a few I can think of, but for the most part, it seems like Hollywood wants to create fear of aliens in us. And I don't know if that's intentional or just drama, because Hollywood loves drama, but they have done a lot of that. So I've had a council come to me and I don't even know who they are. I still don't know who they are. And I just woke up one night and there were four of them standing between me and the bay window in my bedroom. And they were about 8 feet tall. And they looked like they were carved out of stone and real narrow. And they had like these carved tall hats and long carved beards. And they were wearing they all looked like carved stone. And one of them's, their arms were all like this. And one of them put his hands like this and opened them. And in his hands was this glowing green stone. And you know what it looked like? Here I go again. I'm such a nerd. Harry Potter, the Sorcerer's Stone. It looked like that glowing green light. And I didn't know what was going on. I'm just like, these four giant things are in my room. And I'm like, I don't know what to do about this. And I thought later, I think he was really offering that to me and I was supposed to take it. And I would, if they come back again, in case you're listening, I will take the glowing green stone. But I honestly had no idea what it was. And that, I think that happens to a lot of us, that these things can occur when you're uneducated about what's going on, and it makes you fearful just because you have no idea what's going on, or nervous about
Wouldn't you
taking
say?
something.
Because I don't think any of us go into this looking for this. I would have to say, when I first learned about spirit and what that was, to connect with spirit, and it's always been prevalent for me since a child, although I turned it off and came back to it. But if you would have told me, I mean, even though I do believe that we are cognizant on another level, like our subconscious is cognizant of it, me as the human was never out there looking for galactic beings or aliens. It's not ever anything that ever crossed my mind.
I wasn't looking for it, but starting in childhood, they came to me.
Mhm.
And so that's just been something that's been going on. Oh, Sean has another question. Do you have any sense of how these beings live and exist? What are their lifestyles, families, communities like? They do not talk about these kind of, now Sean, do you mean the councils or just the beings themselves?
Like the
Because that's
speaking
different.
community.
The beings, they do not talk about things like that to me.
Mm-mm.
Have they ever talked about that to you, Terri Ann?
Not any of the council or the Galactic Federation, no.
It's more about passing on messages of hope and love and support, like just to know and to let them know, letting us know when they come to us that they are aware our frequency's high, we're ready for receipt of this contact, this information, and not much more beyond that, really. Just
And that
letting
they're
us know
here.
they're there.
They told me that they are here. There's fleets of them in the sky. They are here.
Mhm. But that's a good question, Sean. You know what? Next time one comes to me, I will ask that, and I will file that information away. I'll write it down before I go to sleep so that I'll have that information and pass that on. Maybe we can have another show about that. And he says, I imagine they don't need day jobs. I don't know if you're a male or female, Sean. So I'm saying he, I have no idea. Sean is saying, a guy. Okay, I was right. Sean is saying he imagines they don't need day jobs. I don't know. I don't know. I would imagine when you are pretty much a light form, what would your job be? Probably the jobs are more
Humanity,
mental.
Mhm. Help humanity. That's their day job.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big job when you're down here looking up saying we need help.
Oh my gosh. And we can't be the only planet. We probably are not by a long shot the least progressive client planet out there. That's funny. Nor are we the most progressive. So, we have a long way to go, but there's probably so many millions of planets with people out there, or beings. That's the problem is that a lot of time when scientists are saying no sign of life, they're talking about life like we know it. What if it's life like we don't know it, that we can't even conceive it as life?
Or like
I
you
can
said, that
conceive
they're
it.
below the ground. That guy said they had bases below the ground in Mars. How
Mhm.
are you going to see it if you're sending a satellite up there on the surface of Mars? You're not.
And if they're looking for beings that you can see with your eyes, or something solid like humans, they may be continuously disappointed because we just don't know the many different forms they could take. I've been amazed by the many different forms these beings take. I still remember there's one, I feel bad. I was thinking about it driving home from the office yesterday. I still feel awful about it. When I was living in Sedona and I was under attack from the dark, one night this beautiful light came in and I asked who it was, and I heard them say Orion. And I looked it up online, I saw the spelling and everything. It was like Orion. And I looked it up, and that planet's like, there's a lot of darkness associated. So I'm like, oh, I don't want that here. And they came back the next night. I'm like, nope, you can't be here. And then later I found out this Orion is a totally different thing. So I feel very bad. And I apologized to them again yesterday because they never came back to me. They're like, this woman doesn't want to hear from us. But I thought I was under so much attack from very low frequency beings that, I was suspicious of anything that came into my presence at that point. And if it wasn't angels, like, I just couldn't handle it at that time. So, there's another example of fear getting in the way. I was guilty of that. I still feel bad. Sorry, Orion, I'm really, really sorry. But you just never know. Now I would be able to tune in better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. One of the most recent experiences I had when I was writing the book is this being came in. His name was Salazar. And he was like it was really, I was mesmerized by it. It was like sparkling lights, but they were like spiraled and like just so flowy and moving. And he told me that he is on the High Council with me as an Arcturian. And it's funny because before that, I met this guy, Doug, and I had this strong connection to him. And I heard that he is an aspect of Doug. So I text Doug and I'm like, Doug, this is what Salazar told me. And he's like, that's so interesting. He said, because when you first said it, it didn't resonate with me. But as I sat with it, I feel like he believes, he follows Cryon. So you're like an aspect, there's a piece of you in their field. So he said, I do resonate with the fact that I am a piece of Salazar in his field here on Earth now and connecting with you. So I thought that was it was just so profound.
That is very interesting. I'm glad he sat with it for a while and didn't just go with his first response.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Roz, haven't you had a council come to you?
Yes, I have. And it's been very interesting because it's always because I don't sleep a lot. I am doing energy work a lot during the nighttime. Like I'll just wake up and be awake and I'll start tuning in and going into different frequencies. And I have encountered that council and been there. I mean, I can see them. I can feel them. That's interesting. And it's quite amazing. And I've mentioned this to other people and they, who are far more connected, I think, than I am with the Galactic Federation, but also just with the various species and stuff. And they always know exactly what I'm talking about and have experiences to discuss. So I think there's a lot more of this than we really think is going on. I had some people a few years ago come in from the East Coast, and these people actually lived in a place where they had UFOs coming down in the woods behind their house, and then the beings were coming out, and they could clearly see this. So I think there's tremendous amount of communication, direct communication going on. There are people who participate in this council stuff like Terri Ann, and I think we're very naive. I think we just want our mind to be able to only embrace what we're comfortable with.
What we can see.
Yeah, and we can feel them too.
I think a lot of people are having these visits who don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't, when I didn't have anybody to talk to about it, because I learned a long time ago as a child that it's not going to be well received by people who don't understand or experience similar things. So I would keep it to myself. But there has to be a lot of people. And that's why we like to put ourselves out there and talk about these things, because we have people who hear it, see the show and contact us and say, oh my gosh, I didn't know anybody else had this. I haven't heard anybody talk about this. People don't want to feel like they're alone going through something, even if it's an amazing thing. If you feel like you're the only one, it's very isolating. So I think there's a lot of people being contacted, and it's sort of like testing the waters. they're looking for people who've worked hard on their frequency, who have high frequency and keep it high. Because why? Again, human frequencies here, then you got the angels and ultra terrestrials, the archangels. I mean, if we don't raise our frequency, it's very hard to meet them. It's very hard to receive, to see them, to hear them, to feel them, if you are not raising your frequency yourself. So we do talk about that a lot, because ladies, I mean, my gosh, isn't it like a core of spirituality, like to get your frequency up and keep it up?
And it's a daily struggle sometimes, especially with, I know, was it a few weeks ago, Roz, I texted you and I'm like, what is going on with the energy? Because I knew it wasn't me, but I was like off and dizzy. And so there's a lot of other outside circumstances sometimes that affect our frequency. So we have to really be diligent, especially at those times, to really work on focusing, raising them.
We do. And anybody can, you know, we've got information on, like, I don't know if I put it on the Sedona Soul Sisters blog or on mine, Ivory Angelic Medium blog, but there's information about like getting started to raise your frequency. And then when you've got those 10 down, there's hundreds of ways to raise your frequency. Some are more difficult, more of a challenge than others, but there's so many ways you can raise your frequency, and then keeping it up is the challenge. But I haven't talked to anybody who's experiencing a lot of contact from ultra terrestrials or councils that's not high frequency. It doesn't mean they're better than anybody else. It means they've learned how to raise their frequency and they're keeping it high. That's it. It's a scientific thing. Simple as that. Roz talks about this all the time.
It's physics.
There you go. It is. It is. And we like the megahertz. That's something. Oh, Sean said, do you think the Federation is helping to protect us more from ourselves or from something else?
That's a really good question, I think. You know, as we look at our species, you know, humans, there's just a wide range of where humans are in terms of their motivations, their intentions, etc. You know, and I do believe that, you know, if we're comfortable with the idea that we're not the only ones out there, that there are, you know, however many other species of beings, there are also entities, which I don't even put those in the beings category. You know, those are a totally different breed of animal, so to speak. And I really feel like, you know, giving some thought to that question opens a lot of doors, because there are a tremendous number of entities and other, I don't know if I would call it civilizations, other groupings, who you know, have incredibly different motivations and interests than, you know, the humans and the other beings like ourselves that are out there.
It's
I
interesting.
think if we opened that doorway and it was like a screen and we could suddenly see everyone and everything, we'd probably flip out.
I want to be a woman in black so bad, kind of. I really don't think I am going to be able to do a whole lot of physical protection of the planet, but yeah, you're right, Sean. We may not be able to cope. That would be mind-blowing, to say the least. I can't speak for everybody out there or everyone's experience, but only my own. And for me, they only talk about, these beings and councils have only talked about protecting us from ourselves. And they've never specifically said that we're in danger from other species outside of our planet, outside of our galaxy. I've never heard anything like that. Where I hear that is on sci-fi movies, TV shows. You know, they really concentrate on, oh, you are under danger. You're an innocent planet, and these evil beings are coming your way. You know, they're going to get you. So, but no, I haven't heard anything like that. Have you, Terri Ann?
No, I would probably say we are the worst ones in the universe.
I don't know if we're the worst, but we are not great.
We're pretty dark. I don't know. We are pretty dark. I think that's part of the ascension, though, don't you? We are all ascending now at this time, and people are awakening so that they can feed us little bits and pieces. Like my son in spirit said, it's like food to be digested slowly. So they're giving us bits and pieces, letting us see a little blip of a UFO on an army radar, and we're like, oh, maybe they do exist. And so as we're raising our frequency and they're giving these bits and pieces to us, we're then maybe able to be a little bit more acceptable of the vastness of it all.
I think also, I mean, think about the, we have here in Sedona, I don't know if other people across the country and the world are aware of this, but we have numerous people here in Sedona who have purchased military grade binocular kind of glasses. And when you look through those and when you look up at the sky, it's incredible sometimes how many quote unquote UFOs, how many moving objects are out there. And if you think about the fact that every one of those is either being piloted by someone, driven, they're exploring, and you do see sometimes groups of them moving together. So, I mean, if you just let your mind flow with that, it's pretty amazing.
It is. And I have night vision goggles, and I've seen things like that. And even without them, I've seen things like that. We all know about the lights that are famous in North Phoenix Valley. And I've never seen those, but I know people who have seen them multiple times. And, thousands of people saw them, these groups of lights in a very specific formation. And it wasn't the military. It wasn't any known source. I mean, there's just things all over the place happening. And the thing is, if you don't want to see it, you're probably not going to see it. If you don't open your mind, if you're not open and raising your frequencies so that you're able to experience more of this, you may never. And I think if you're listening to this show, you probably want to experience these things. You probably would love to experience a visit from an ultra-terrestrial, really high frequency, high positive intention being, or a council, right? So here's some things you can do to make it more likely for yourself. Raise your frequency. Don't be afraid. Fear will repel them.
That should be like a weekly topic. Raise your frequency.
Yes. How are we going to raise our frequency this week? I got a cough.
I think one thing people fear is the possibility that these things that we see and these things that we experience, it's not just that they might have an intention of harm, it's about how they will change our world and our perception of everything, because there's just as much fear around change as there is around, the potential for crazy end result things of, we've had recently all this discussion of potential of nuclear war. Well, it's not the first time that that's been mentioned. And they have actually had, I believe, some film and some video of these ships coming in and hovering and changing everything. The plasma, the earth energy, everything around these silos where they have these massive bombs and nuclear bombs and all that. So I think we just have to kind of be open to the possibilities that their motivation for our good is much stronger than any negative motivation.
Roz, you hit the nail on the head with this. It's about fear. And, most people are very afraid of change, the unknown. and something different, something you've never experienced before can be fearful. But if you let that be a stopping point, if you just get afraid and so you don't want to know anymore, you won't allow yourself to experience it, what are you missing out on? What kind of experiences could you be having that could be change your life, open your mind, expand it, help other people do the same thing? And I think we have to think about that. These are dark times, not the darkest we've ever had on the planet, but they're dark times. And it's nice to know we really do have high intention beings out there and angels watching over us and protecting us and trying to keep things calm and keep it from escalating further. It's out there for sure. That's not my opinion. I know that's true.
Yeah,
Any
and
last thing you want to say on this topic?
I would like to say the world is so much bigger than what you can just see with these two eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So be open to that.
100%. 100%. You've been listening to the Sedona Soul Sisters show. If you'd like more information about us or our services, visit our website, sedonasoulsisters.com. Subscribe so you don't miss a thing. And tune in next Friday. Our topic is owning your power. In the meantime, we hope you have an enlightening week.